In this story, we follow Jack, a former U.S. Special Forces operative who decides to leave his military life behind to build a quiet life with his wife, Roxy. Hoping to start over, they decide to buy a house in a rural area, far from the noise and the shadows of the past. As time goes by, the sheriff begins to approach with a strange interest, trying to convince the couple to sell the property. However, Jack and Roxy reject his insistent offers. That day, as usual, the sheriff shows up again, but this time with an even more tempting offer. Wayne tells them that the people interested are offering much more than the property is worth, and that they should seriously consider the proposal. He insists that he says it as a friendly piece of advice. With some discomfort, the couple responds that they need some time to discuss it, though they will probably reject it, since the pregnancy has changed their priorities. At any moment, their baby will arrive. The next morning, while sharing a meal at Roxy's brother's house, Jack freezes in the middle of dinner, reliving traumatic memories of his time in the war in Afghanistan. Aware of what goes through his mind, Joe comments that he also experiences moments when his mind shuts down because of a war. It is something they simply have to learn to live with. The couple tells them that they would like to spend more time together. They mention that just a few blocks from the area, there is a 3-bedroom house for sale. If they decide to move nearby, they could share more moments as a family. When they return home, Roxy reconsiders the sheriff's proposal. The last few days have been strange. She thinks the best thing would be to accept the offer. Jack assures her that he will talk to the sheriff in the morning. For now, the only thing they should do is rest, since it is already too late. As Roxy goes upstairs to her room, Jack stays outside unloading the luggage from the vehicle. At that moment, his neighbor approaches and tells him that he saw some strange men lurking around the area, apparently looking for them. Jack gets closer to listen and realizes that he has had a few drinks, so he does not take it seriously. Jack returns home, and as he enters through the front door, he is surprised by several armed gang members who attack him with bats and knock him to the ground. Between threats and mockery, they reveal that they come on behalf of the person interested in buying the property. The woman begs them not to hurt them and promises that they will leave immediately. However, one of the gang members yells at her to shut up and, without any kind of scruples, they begin to torture her in front of her husband. In a desperate move, the veteran manages to free himself, but the blows he has received leave him staggering, too weak to defend himself. As she is dragged across the floor with a rope around her neck, Roxy manages to grab a knife from the table and stabs one of the gang members. Driven by rage, the criminal shoots her in the head without thinking about the consequences. The attackers retreat in a hurry, but the veteran, full of fury, attacks them from behind. He manages to knock one unconscious and takes his weapon to shoot at them, although they finally escape in their truck. At that moment, the patrols arrive in the area. The veteran, without hesitation, executes the gang member with a shot to the head. Because of the circumstances in which the gang member died, the sheriff informs him that there is nothing he can do to help him. He understands the situation, but the shot was fired outside the perimeter of the house, which complicates his right to self-defense under local law. He points out that the gang member died from a shot to the head and that his body was found outside the house. Even though the attacker broke into his home, the justice system will consider his action an act of revenge, not an act of self-defense. On the other hand, we meet Bastian, a powerful and ruthless man who runs a network of organized crime in the town where Jack lives. Behind the facade of a respectable businessman, he manages legal businesses such as construction companies and real estate to cover his illicit activities. He manipulates the law as he pleases, pulling the strings from the shadows to maintain his dominance. It turns out that Bastian sent his sons accompanied by several soldiers. The objective was to threaten the couple into leaving the residence. However, what seemed to be a simple task ended up with one of his sons killed. The only reason Leon is still alive is because he is his second son. Before Jack is brought before the court, the sheriff takes care of analyzing in detail his extensive war record. He discovers that at 18 years old, Jack decided to enlist in the army and that during his service, he was deployed in different conflict zones such as Syria and Afghanistan, facing extreme situations that tested both his physical and mental endurance. In addition to this, he became part of the U.S. Special Forces, consolidating his training and combat experience. He tells him that his complex military past not only speaks of his ability to survive in hostile environments, but also complicates his legal situation considerably. The authorities see him as someone trained for combat and highly dangerous, a kind of lethal weapon. Because of this, his judicial process becomes much more rigorous and severe, since they not only have to evaluate the facts of the case, but also the potential risk he represents to public safety. When the day of the trial arrives, one of Bastian's men shows up in the courtroom to witness the sentence. Shortly afterward, Jack's lawyer approaches him with unexpected news. The prosecution has offered him a plea deal. According to her, given the circumstances, it is a favorable offer. Confused by the terms, Jack asks her for explanations. She replies that his wife was black, making it clear that the judicial system is tainted by deep-rooted institutional racism. His defense might have been valid in other circumstances, but although his wife was brutally murdered, the justice system does not give her death the same value simply because of her race. Later, we see Charles informing his boss that Jack has been sentenced to 6 years in prison. He will be sent to a penitentiary where several of their men are already locked up, which will allow them to keep an eye on him. They are just waiting for the order to kill him. Bastian responds that they should let him live. A quick death would be doing him a favor. When he finishes his sentence, they will be waiting for him. At that moment, his daughter asks about her mother. Bastian replies that she will be back tomorrow, but Molly reproaches him that he has been saying the same thing for several days. Tired of the situation, Bastian decides to tell her the supposed truth. It is likely that her mother will never return. They had adult problems, they separated, and now she is part of another family. Since then, she has never come back to ask about them, so he assumes she has stopped loving them. 6 years later, we see Jack leaving prison after serving his sentence. Joe picks him up and takes him to his house. Before Jack gets out of the car, Joe offers to stay a while to keep him company, but Jack rejects the gesture, saying it is not necessary and thanking him for picking him up. As he enters the living room, his eyes stop on the blood-stained carpet. Without saying a word, the memories of his wife return with force, plunging him into deep silence. Determined to take revenge, he visits his neighbor to ask about the people responsible for the attack. Earl informs him that the men belong to a criminal gang. The ones who managed to escape are named Derek and Leon, and they usually drink at the bar near Route 30. However, he warns him that both are nothing more than henchmen at the service of Bastian, a man who hides behind the facade of a millionaire businessman, but whom everyone in town knows as the real Mafia boss. He must be very careful with his informants. Bastian has contacts everywhere. He is considered the most respected man in the city. No one dares to confront him. Once at the location, the ex-soldier infiltrates, carefully observing each of the visitors. As he sits near an unoccupied table, some thugs approach with the intention of intimidating him. He is sitting in the area that belongs to them, and they warn him that he had better leave now if he does not want trouble. Pretending to be friendly, Jack hands them his drink and leaves without responding to the provocation. When the man leaves the bar after having a couple of drinks, the veteran surprises him inside his vehicle, wrapping a rope around his neck. He strangles him until he loses consciousness and drags him to his own vehicle. Then he calls Joe and asks for the number of one of his trusted companions, who owns a weapons warehouse. Jack makes it clear that he plans to take revenge for the death of his beloved. Once in the warehouse, our protagonist equips himself with high-caliber rifles, mines, and various explosives, including several smoke grenades. Later, back home, he receives an unexpected visit from Charles, Bastian's trusted hitman. Charles throws him a warning disguised as advice. If he has any common sense, he should pack up and leave the city as soon as possible. Otherwise, they will have to pay him another visit. After tying him to a chair, Mouse begins to regain consciousness. The veteran lights a blowtorch and approaches him with slow steps. He tells him that he is looking for some friends. Their names are Derek and Leon. Seeing the flame getting closer to his eyes, the thug panics and begs him to stop, promising to tell him everything he knows as long as he is not hurt. Later, after threatening Mouse and obtaining Leon's number, Jack decides to call him directly. With a defiant tone, he throws several provocations at him, intending to lure him out. Unable to contain his rage, the gangster falls into the trap and orders his men to accompany him, mentioning that he'll not allow anyone to mock his family. Jack releases the thug and tells him to leave. He does not plan to kill anyone who is not involved in the death of his wife. Mouse runs away, and as soon as he leaves the residence, he is shot in the head by Bastion's hitman. At that moment, Jack notices the arrival of Leon along with his gang. He quickly calls his boss and informs him of the gang members' arrival. He is supposed to take care of it on his own, but Bastion orders him to stop them. He cannot talk much since he is in a very important meeting. His mission is to capture the veteran alive. When trying to stop them, the gang members break into the veteran's house, kicking the door down without knowing that Jack is already waiting for them with a shotgun. With no plan at all, the gangsters open fire desperately, shooting blindly in all directions. This gives Jack the advantage to move through the shadows and eliminate them one by one without major complications. Just as he is about to shoot Leon, Charles bursts in from the side and tackles him, pushing him away at the last moment. However, as both of them try to escape through the window, Jack manages to shoot and wound the gangster in the side of the abdomen. Charles drags him to the truck, loads him as best he can, and floors the accelerator, managing to escape before Jack can catch them. Aware that he acted under the law of self-defense, Jack stays in the house, waiting for the authorities to arrive. When the sheriff finally shows up, he tells him that he knows what he is doing, that he understands his decision to stay, but also warns him that he is facing very dangerous people. They are people who know no limits and are used to getting their way. Although the law supports him this time, that will not stop those behind it all. He makes it clear that he is also tired of the Mafias, but he must keep in mind that this will not be the last time they try to kill him. Staring into the void, Jack responds that they took his life 6 years ago. He does not care what he has to risk. The only thing that motivates him is his desire to take revenge for the death of his family. The next morning, our protagonist begins to fortify his house, preparing for the inevitable. He digs small trenches around the entire perimeter and hides mines camouflaged in the garden vegetation. At the main entrances, he sets grenades connected to improvised traps. Finally, he distributes explosives strategically at key points in the structure, making sure every corner is ready for defense. Meanwhile, we see Molly arriving at her house. Outside, several of her father's soldiers are gathered, arming themselves and loading ammunition, ready to head to the veteran's house. Overwhelmed by the commotion, she hurries to the entrance and stops when she sees her brother Leon on a stretcher. Confused, she asks what happened, to which her father explains that he was wounded by the same man who killed Michael. His daughter suggests that he should send the sheriff to handle the problem, but Bastion harshly interrupts her and demands that she be quiet. He does not like the tone in which she speaks to him. She reminds him of her mother trying to give orders. He does not want her to disrespect him again. Minutes later, Jack receives an unexpected visit from his neighbor, who surprises him with some food for dinner. The veteran thanks him and warns him to be careful. There are several explosives scattered throughout the area. Tonight will be very dangerous. He should leave before his visitors arrive. As night falls, Bastion's men approach the perimeter, moving stealthily through the shadows of the yard, unaware that the ground is seeded with traps hidden in the undergrowth. Inevitably, one of them triggers a mine, unleashing an explosion that plunges them all into chaos. Taking advantage of the confusion, Jack responds from inside the house, shooting accurately and neutralizing 3 hitmen. The others try to enter through the garage but trigger a second trap, a gym bar that falls on the thug's neck, killing him in seconds. The second group tries to enter through the living room, not knowing that on the other side a grenade attached to a mechanism is waiting for them. Overwhelmed by panic after seeing his companions die, one of the hitmen tries to escape desperately, running into a barbed wire stretched between 2 pillars. At the moment Charles's group manages to break into the living room, the veteran detonates the strategically placed explosives, blowing up the lamps and hurling several hitmen against the walls. Taking advantage of their daze, Jack reveals his position and shoots them with his rifle, hitting 2 of them before taking cover again. Disoriented but determined, the hitmen begin to chase him while firing their weapons. Unfortunately for him, one of the bullets hits his leg, knocking him down for a moment. However, the veteran quickly gets back up and counterattacks with accurate fire, managing to take down another attacker before retreating to one of the rooms. Without wasting time, he grabs tape and wraps it around his leg to stop the bleeding. When the sheriff and his partner reach the perimeter, they see the neighbor approaching one of the wounded hitmen. He mentions that he is tired of the Mafia, pulls out his weapon, and shoots him in the head at point-blank range. At that moment, another criminal appears and shoots him in the shoulder. The old man falls to his knees, but before the hitman can finish him off, the officers open fire and neutralize him instantly. Meanwhile, Bastian decides to accompany his soldiers on the way to the veteran's house. As he is about to get into the vehicle, Molly gathers her courage to confront her father, trying to stop him with a firm tone, almost as if she were imposing her will. Bastian stops, enraged. He looks at her with fury and makes it clear that he will not tolerate that kind of attitude. He tells her that in this world there is no good or evil. There are only those who impose the rules, and anyone who dares to defy them, even within his own family, will be punished without mercy. He demands that she stop interfering in his decisions. With that attitude, she makes him suspect that he has an enemy inside his own house. Wayne enters the residence cautiously, but one of the thugs who is still alive attacks him from behind. In the middle of the struggle, the agent is thrown to the ground but manages to recover his shotgun just in time to kill the attacker with a point-blank shot. Meanwhile, in one of the rooms, Charles charges at the veteran and knocks him down, wrapping his rifle around his neck and pressing hard to strangle him. The veteran struggles with many complications, but he manages to reverse the situation and unleashes a series of powerful punches that leave his rival stunned. The hitman falls to the ground, and as he turns his head, he discovers a hidden weapon, grabs it immediately, and points it right as Jack tries to reach his pistol. As they exit the room, they come face to face with the agent, who orders Charles to drop the weapon. He refuses and with a defiant tone arrogantly reminds him that he seems to be forgetting he works for his boss. In an unexpected move, he pulls out a knife and lunges at him. Our protagonist reacts immediately, disarms him, and stabs him in the neck with the same knife. Gravely wounded and with his last breath, Charles pulls out a grenade, ready to take them with him. However, the sheriff shoots him with his shotgun, blasting him outside at the right moment. Meanwhile, Molly decides to ask her father's personal doctor about her mother. She wants to know the truth, to understand why she decided to abandon them. Sam, who has taken care of them since they were little, always sensed she was different from the rest of her family. Unlike Bastian and his children, Molly kept something of compassion, something human. So when he sees her determined to find answers, he confesses that her mother never abandoned them out of selfishness, but to protect them. She wanted to get them away from Bastian, away from the dark world surrounding him, but she had no choice. Then he gives her a piece of paper with the address where her mother now lives and asks her not to tell anyone, especially her father. She can still change her path, but she has to do it carefully. Returning to our protagonist, after stopping the sheriff's bleeding, he helps him out of the house. Outside, his partner Yon informs him that Molly just called. She said Bastian is on his way, and he is not coming alone. He is bringing several heavily armed men with him. The sheriff, still in pain, asks the veteran to come with them, that he has already done enough, but Jack refuses outright. He says he is not going anywhere, that tonight he is going to end the Mafia once and for all. At that moment, his war buddy appears with a machine gun. Alongside Jack, they begin to position themselves strategically, preparing for the final showdown. Unexpectedly, the sheriff, still with his fresh wound but determined, comes back to join them, ready to face the Mafia to the bitter end. Within minutes, the mobsters arrive at the perimeter. Before the shooting begins, the sheriff steps forward with his hands up, asking them to leave immediately. Too many people have already died because of this war. Bastian ignores him and with a defiant voice shouts at Jack to come out. It is time to settle their problems like men. The officer insists one last time, warning them that if they do not leave, he will have to arrest them. Bastian responds with contempt, ordering him to shut up. The sheriff, tired of the same situation, tells him he will no longer follow his orders. Enraged by his words, he pulls out his pistol and shoots him in the back, ordering his men to move, and the veteran greets them with a machine gun, killing several thugs in a matter of seconds. When the criminals manage to enter the house, Jack throws 3 smoke grenades. Like a shadow in the fog, he moves quickly and attacks the hitmen with a knife. Meanwhile, his partner covers his movements, annihilating the others with precise bursts of machine gun fire, giving them no chance to react. After taking down more than 10 enemies, Jack reunites with his friend, and together they unleash a brutal counterattack, eliminating several hitmen with a precise and synchronized offensive. By throwing several grenades outside to slow the mobsters' advance, Jack notices the sheriff is still alive. Without wasting time, he asks Joe to get him out and take him to the hospital. They throw a couple of smoke grenades to cover the movement, and Joe moves to rescue the sheriff. At that moment, one of the mobsters manages to enter through the main door and attacks the veteran by surprise. Jack struggles, and they fight for control of the weapon. After a brief fight, he manages to fire a shot just a few inches from the attacker's face, killing him instantly, though the blast leaves Jack momentarily stunned. In that sudden silence, his mind dissociates from the present, having a vivid memory of his late wife. The day she revealed she was pregnant, everything feels so real for an instant, but the echo of a machine gun burst drags him back to reality. Bastian shoots wildly from outside. Jack crawls wounded to the bathroom and hides in the bathtub. Everything falls silent. The mobsters, not detecting movement anywhere, assume their victim has died from the barrage of bullets, so they begin inspecting every room without suspecting the veteran is still alive. As they cross the living room, Jack triggers the detonator, and a violent explosion devastates the entire property, brutally wiping out the hitmen inside, except for the Mafia boss, who manages to escape in his truck. The next morning, Bastian surprises his daughter and asks her to sit down to talk. Molly tells him Wayne is still alive and that he told her everything that happened the night before. She knows her father shot him in the back and that he has lost the little humanity he had left. He has become a monster. She tells him she plans to leave the house with her brother, that she will not let Leon end up like him. As she approaches the stretcher, Molly realizes her brother Leon has been murdered. A shot to the head has taken his life. Suddenly, our protagonist appears on the scene, surprisingly alive after the devastating explosion that reduced the house to rubble. With a firm but painful voice, he asks Molly to step aside. Her brother murdered his pregnant wife. He never wanted problems with them. He is simply taking revenge. At that moment, Bastian bursts in from behind and shoots Jack in the back. The veteran falls to the ground. Bastian approaches and pushes the weapon away. Molly reacts quickly, grabs the gun, and begs him to stop, blinded by rage. Bastian tries to shoot his own daughter, but Molly shoots first, ending her father's life with a lethal shot straight to the head. Some indefinite time later, we see the sheriff arriving at the police department. The veteran's neighbor, who now works with them, greets him with a firm salute. At that moment, Molly appears to say goodbye, determined to set out on a journey north in search of her mother. Before leaving, she takes a moment to thank them for everything they did for her. She tells them that without their support, nothing would have changed, that it was them who showed her the right path and gave her the strength to move forward. In the final scenes, we see Joe with his wife leaving flowers on Jack's grave, paying tribute to the veteran who fought until the end.